Hey there! Welcome back to the channel. Have you ever reached a point where reacting felt pointless? Where explaining yourself felt like a trap? Where every response you gave seemed to give someone more room to twist your words, drain your peace, or pull you into a cycle that always left you feeling smaller than you truly are? If you've ever been there, then you know the moment you choose silence is the moment everything changes. The moment you stop feeding their drama, their guilt trips, their passive-aggressive comments, their fake apologies, their sudden mood swings, and their need for control, you take back something they never expected you to reclaim: your self-command. Stoic philosophy teaches that control over your reactions is the root of personal freedom. Epictetus said, "If you are disturbed, it is not events that trouble you, but your opinion of them." When you stay silent in the face of manipulation, you are choosing not to let someone else decide how you feel. You are no longer letting their behavior dictate your state of mind. You are saying, without a single word, "You don't get to control me anymore." Silence hits differently when someone is used to you over-explaining. It hits differently when they expect you to chase. It hits differently when they've relied on your emotional responses to keep their control alive. Your silence becomes a mirror they cannot avoid. Your silence makes them sit with their own behavior. Your silence exposes the truth they've been trying to hide behind arguments, guilt, and manipulation. And most importantly, your silence reconnects you with your own power. The power you forgot you had. Today, we're going to break down exactly why your silence destroys manipulation, how it forces people to face their own actions, and how you can use silence to build unshakable emotional strength. Before we begin, drop this affirmation in the comments: "My silence is my strength." Number 1. Your silence removes their control over your emotions. The first thing you must understand is that silence is not weakness. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is not surrender. Silence is emotional discipline, and emotional discipline is the greatest threat to anyone who tries to manipulate your reactions. Manipulators operate by pulling strings. They push buttons, stir drama, create tension, and then wait for you to explode, defend yourself, justify your feelings, or fall into confusion. They study your responses, and the moment they see what gets to you, they use it again and again. But when you choose silence, those strings snap. They cannot get inside your mind the way they did before. They cannot make you panic. They cannot make you rush to answer. They cannot make you feel guilty for things you did not do. Stoic philosophy reminds us that the strongest person is the one who refuses to be ruled by emotion. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." When you stay silent, you shift your focus inward and stop giving emotional power to someone who never earned it. You create space between their behavior and your response. You choose clarity over chaos. You choose peace over pressure. You choose presence over panic. Your silence creates a wall they cannot climb, because they no longer know what you feel, what you think, or what you plan to do. They lose the access they once relied on, and when they lose emotional access, they lose control. Your silence forces them to face their own actions because they cannot blame you when you give them nothing to fight with. They cannot twist your words when you give them no words. They cannot drag you into arguments when you don't step into the ring. Silence is not passive. It is powerful self-protection. It is the moment you stop letting someone drain your emotional energy and start protecting your peace like it is sacred. Because it is. Number 2, your silence forces them to face themselves. One of the most powerful things your silence does is push the manipulator back into their own mind. People who rely on emotional pressure and guilt do everything they can to avoid looking at their own behavior, because looking inward requires honesty, responsibility, and awareness. Manipulators hide from those things by distracting themselves with controlling others. When you stop reacting, you remove their distraction. You stop feeding their ego. You stop giving them something to push against. For the first time, they must sit with their own thoughts, and that is something they are not used to doing. Stoic wisdom says that a person who refuses to examine their own mind becomes a prisoner of it. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Your silence forces them to see how little mastery they truly have. Without your emotional responses, they cannot avoid themselves anymore. They feel the emptiness of their actions. They feel the discomfort of their choices. They feel the reality of their behavior bouncing back at them with no shield to soften it. Silence makes them confront the truth that their manipulation only worked because you allowed it to. And now that you no longer engage, they must face the uncomfortable fact that the control they thought they had was never real. When you walk away from the emotional battlefield, they are left swinging at nothing. That emptiness hits harder than any words you could ever say. Silence becomes a mirror, reflecting their intentions, insecurities, and flaws right back at them. They may try to provoke you again just to escape that discomfort, but when you stay firm, they are forced to recognize that they can no longer use you to avoid their own reality. This is how you reclaim your power. You stop letting someone else shape your emotional state, and you let them sit with the consequences of their behavior. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments right now. I owe no one access to my peace. Number 3. Silence reveals who truly respects you. One of the strongest effects of using silence is that it clearly separates the people who value you from the people who only valued what they could get from you. When you stop over-explaining, over-giving, and overreacting, you create a space where true respect becomes visible. People who genuinely care about you will respect your quiet moments, your boundaries, and your emotional need for peace. They will not panic when you take time to yourself, and they will not pressure you for instant access. They will give you space without guilt. But people who used you, drained you, or depended on your emotional availability for their own comfort will feel threatened when you go silent. They will try to pull you back into old patterns, not because they care, but because your silence exposes that their connection depended on your constant effort. Stoic philosophy teaches that respect must come from action, not words. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When someone reacts with anger or manipulation to your silence, it shows the color of their intentions. Genuine souls remain calm. Selfish souls panic. Silence reveals character in a way talking never will. It strips away polite masks. It removes excuses. It exposes motives. When someone truly values you, they reach out with understanding rather than pressure. They approach you with patience rather than entitlement. They respond with maturity rather than emotional games. Your silence becomes a filter that shows you who deserves your energy and who doesn't. It teaches you that you do not need to beg anyone to respect you. The right people recognize your worth without you having to prove anything. The wrong people only recognize your worth when they lose access to it. This tip is about understanding that silence is not about punishment, it is about clarity. It gives you the vision to see truth that constant communication hides. It shows you whose intentions align with your peace. Number 4. Silence breaks their control over your emotions. One of the biggest reasons manipulators hate silence is because it breaks their ability to pull your emotions like strings. When you stop reacting, they lose their favorite weapon, your emotional response. Manipulation only works when the other person can trigger you, frustrate you, confuse you, or make you feel responsible for their feelings. But when you choose silence, when you stay calm instead of exploding, when you step back instead of arguing, you remove the fuel that keeps their control alive. Stoic wisdom reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. This simple truth destroys manipulation at its core. Manipulators depend on quick reactions. They want you emotional, desperate, and confused because that keeps them in charge. Your silence disrupts the pattern. It forces them to face the fact that they cannot influence your inner state. Suddenly they can't provoke you like they used to. They can't guilt-trip you into doing what they want. They can't twist your words into arguments. They can't drag you into circles because you're no longer stepping into the ring. Your energy becomes untouchable, and once someone realizes they no longer control how you think, how you feel, or how you respond, the power shifts instantly. You regain your strength without saying a single word. That's the beauty of silence. You're no longer giving your emotional energy away like it's something cheap. You begin to conserve it, redirect it, and protect it. Emotional control is not about being cold. It's about being unshakable. Silence is the training ground for that strength. It gives you time to breathe, think, and see things without emotional fog. It teaches you to respond from confidence, not fear. And it shows the manipulator that the game they once played no longer works on you. This is how you reclaim your power, through calm, controlled, intentional silence. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments right now. My emotions belong to me, not to anyone else. Number 5. Silence exposes their true intentions. Silence is powerful because it reveals what someone really wants from you. When you stop reacting, you stop giving them the emotional feedback they use to hide behind. That is when their true motives finally come into the light. If someone is genuine, your silence won't bother them. They will approach with respect, patience, and clarity. They won't pressure you. They won't rush you. They won't panic. They won't get angry just because you are taking a step back. But manipulators do the opposite. Your silence frustrates them because they can no longer predict you or control how you think. They often start showing signs of desperation, irritation, or confusion. They start texting more aggressively, switching tones, or trying new tactics to pull you back in. They may pretend to care, but silence exposes whether that care is genuine or selfish. And that's why Stoic philosophy teaches, time discovers truth. Your silence creates time, and time exposes everything people try to hide. Without your reactions to distract them, they reveal themselves. A manipulator might guilt-trip you, try to provoke you, or act like the victim. A selfish person might accuse you of ignoring them. Someone who only valued the benefits you gave them will start asking for favors again. But a healthy person will simply check on you with kindness and leave space for you to come back on your own. That difference becomes crystal clear when you stop giving them instant access. Silence lets you see what your eyes couldn't see before. It helps you understand if they truly cared about your well-being or only cared about what you provided. It also shows you who respects your boundaries and who gets angry when you finally set them. Silence never lies. It doesn't force anything. It doesn't argue. It simply shows truth in a way words never could. This is why your silence becomes your teacher and your protector. It gives you the clarity you need to make choices based on reality rather than emotion. Number 6. Silence builds your emotional discipline. Silence is one of the strongest ways to build emotional discipline because it forces you to sit with your feelings instead of acting on impulse. When you stop responding to someone who used to trigger you, you're training yourself to break old emotional habits. You're showing your mind that you don't need to jump every time someone demands your attention. You don't need to defend yourself every time someone challenges you. You don't need to explain yourself just because someone wants an answer. Silence creates a space where you learn to handle your emotions with strength instead of reaction. This is why Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." By choosing silence, you take your emotional power back from anyone who used to control it. When you don't reply, when you don't argue, when you don't chase, you give yourself the chance to breathe, observe, and decide with clarity instead of fear or pressure. That is how emotional maturity grows. Silence also teaches you how to stay calm even when someone tries to provoke you. Manipulators rely on emotional reactions. When you don't give them one, they lose their advantage. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know how you feel. They don't know what you'll do next. And the moment they lose emotional access to you, you gain peace. Silence helps you respond only when it benefits you, not when it benefits them. It helps you break that cycle where other people's moods used to control your decisions. You learn to pause. You learn to think. You learn to regulate your emotions instead of letting them explode. This discipline makes you unshakable because you no longer react based on pain. You act based on strength. Silence becomes the space where your emotions settle, your mind clears, and your confidence rises. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments right now. My silence strengthens my emotional control. Number 7. Silence teaches you how to protect your energy. Silence becomes a shield when you use it to guard your energy from people who drain you, confuse you, or try to disrupt your emotional balance. When you stop giving constant access to your thoughts, your feelings, and your reactions, you immediately create a boundary that protects your peace. Many people depend on your response to feel powerful. They want your attention because it feeds their ego. They want your reaction because it gives them control. They want your words because it allows them to twist, manipulate, or redirect the situation back onto you. But when you choose silence, you remove their fuel. You stop giving them anything to feed off. You stop allowing them to shape your mood. You stop letting them influence your direction. Epictetus once said, "The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have." Silence is you saying, "My energy is mine, and I get to decide who deserves it." When you pull back, you begin to notice who respects you and who only wants something from you. You see who checks on you and who only checks on what they can gain. You see who cares about your heart and who only cares about their advantage. Silence protects your inner world because it helps you filter out people who were never meant to stay. It also helps you rebuild your strength without someone constantly pulling at your emotions. When you guard your energy with silence, you become harder to manipulate, harder to sway, and harder to break. You become someone who doesn't give their power away easily. You become someone who listens more, observes more, and reacts only when it's wise. Silence teaches you that not everyone deserves access to your mind or your peace. Number 8. Silence amplifies your inner power. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is a declaration that your power cannot be stolen, bargained, or manipulated. When you stop reacting to people who try to control you, when you stop giving explanations, when you stop begging for recognition, something remarkable happens. Your presence becomes magnetic, your value becomes undeniable, and your influence grows without you having to say a word. The Stoic philosopher Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." Silence is your bravery in action. It is a refusal to let external chaos disturb your inner peace. Every time you resist the urge to argue, defend, or justify yourself, you reclaim control over your emotions, over your mind, and over your decisions. People may still try to pull at you, to provoke, or to test you, but your silence creates a space where their power no longer reaches you. You stop feeding their ego and start feeding your self-respect. You stop being a participant in their drama and start being the observer, the strategist, the one who decides what deserves your energy. Silence amplifies your strength because it forces people to recognize that your life moves forward with or without their approval. It reminds them that your calm is not something they can take, that your peace is not negotiable, and that your boundaries are non-negotiable. It turns reactions into respect, chaos into clarity, and manipulation into nothing more than noise. Silence allows you to build unshakable confidence because it proves you do not need validation to exist. You operate from your own value, and that alone commands respect. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence strengthens my power, and my presence is unshakable. You've seen it clearly. Silence is not empty. It is a weapon of self-mastery. Silence is the ultimate form of control because it prevents others from dictating your emotions, manipulating your decisions, or stealing your energy. When you stop reacting to every provocation, every insult, every attempt at control, you reclaim your freedom. The Stoics teach us that external events are not what disturb us. It is our judgment of them. When you walk in silence, you decide your value, your boundaries, and your peace, and no one else can touch that. Every tip we've covered today, from using silence to force reflection, to amplifying your presence without saying a word, to holding unwavering boundaries, all of it comes down to one truth. Your power lives inside you, and silence is its amplifier. Remember, silence is not passive, it is active strength. It is courage in action. It is self-respect in motion. Your life will change the moment you embrace it fully. Don't give your energy away, don't justify yourself, and never chase validation. Protect your peace, honor your worth. Let your actions, your calm, and your silence speak louder than words ever could. Drop this affirmation in the comments and own it. I am unshakable. My power is within me, and no one can control my peace. Subscribe, stay empowered, and continue building a life that commands respect.